They called her a liar. They called him a myth. By the end, the only thing left was silence and truth. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The echo of bare feet against a waxed wooden floor whispered through the gym like a distant drum. Afternoon light spilled in fractured beams across the training mats, catching dust in its path, painting everything in soft gold and shadow. The room smelled of sweat and liniment, of discipline and repetition. Students moved and practiced rhythm, each shout landing like punctuation, every strike snapping to the still air. But one girl moved differently. Mara's motions were quiet, deliberate. Where others chased noise and power, she seemed to carve space with silence. Her stances were clean, rooted. Her strikes didn't just land, they spoke. She finished her kata without flair or pause, stepped back into line, and bowed. No one clapped. But one of the boys at the back, just loud enough for others to hear, muttered, "Where she learned that." A few chuckles followed. "Looks like someone's been watching movie montages." Another said, the instructor, Sensei Brolin, tall and lean with a sharp jaw and a sharper temper, looked up from where he'd been tightening his belt. His voice cut through the murmurs. "Mara, front and center." She blinked. "Yes, Sensei." Her voice was calm, but quiet as she stepped forward. Brolin paced slowly, circling her like a hawk eyeing a feathered threat. "Where did you learn that form?" he asked. "That's not from our curriculum." She hesitated. Just for a second. "My grandfather," she said. His brows rose. "Your grandfather teaches?" "He used to." Her voice wavered slightly but held. "He trained special forces. Before I joined here, he taught me the traditional forms." Another ripple moved through the students. A girl rolled her eyes. "Okay, Secret Agent Barbie." One of the older boys grinned. "Let me guess, he's ex-CIA?" Mara didn't react, just breathed. "His name is Arnold Schwarzenegger." The silence hit harder than any punch. Then came the laughter. Not cruel at first, just sharp and full of disbelief. "Wait, what?" someone said. "Did she just say Arnold?" "No way," another snorted. "You mean the Terminator? Come on." Brolin didn't laugh. But he didn't hide his smirk either. He stepped in closer, expression unreadable. "You're saying your grandfather's Arnold Schwarzenegger," he said slowly, as if the name tasted foreign. "Yes," Mara said. "Nothing more. Just that." Her eyes didn't waver. The pause that followed stretched thin. Then Brolin exhaled through his nose and shook his head. "You think this is a joke?" "No, Sensei." "You think it's honorable to name-drop a celebrity for attention?" "I wasn't enough," he snapped, cutting her off. His voice rose. "You've disrespected this dojo with a lie." "It wasn't a lie," she said, barely above a whisper, then apologized to class. She looked around at the faces watching her, some amused, some blank, no one defending. "I didn't lie," she said again. Louder, Brolin demanded, "Apologize." She didn't. Then it happened. The slap wasn't loud, but the silence that followed it was. His hand struck the side of her face with practiced authority, a casual cruelty honed over years. Her head turned slightly with the impact, her cheek flushing a deep, spreading red, but her eyes stayed open. Her breath caught, not from pain, not from fear, but from something deeper, like the world had tilted under her feet, and she chose not to fall with it. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. Just clenched her fists, lowered her eyes, and stood perfectly still, her breathing shallow but steady. No one moved. No one spoke. "Back in line," Brolin said, voice low. She nodded once, turned, and walked back to her place. Every step echoed. Training resumed. At least, that's what it looked like. But no one really moved the same after that. Every punch, every shout felt thinner, like something had cracked beneath the surface, and none of them could pretend not to see it. When the final bow was called and the class dismissed, Mara picked up her bag without looking at anyone. She stepped into the hallway, face still warm, stomach knotted with something she couldn't name. Her feet moved on their own, out the door, down the steps, past the lawn that sloped behind the gym. The sun was still out, too bright, too careless. Across the lot, an old man in a faded cap and utility jacket was watering the flower beds. No one really noticed him, just the guy who kept the grounds tidy. He moved slowly, the hose dragging behind him, his boots leaving light marks in the gravel. When she passed by him, she didn't say a word, but he turned his head just slightly, eyes following her steps, gaze narrowing at the mark on her cheek. He didn't call out. He didn't ask. He just watched. And the water kept flowing over the roots like nothing had changed. She didn't look back once. Not at the dojo. Not at the window still glowing behind the mats. Not at the gate where the wind stirred a flag just enough to make it look alive. The sun was still high, but it felt colder than it had any right to. Her bag bounced lightly against her side as she pedaled home. The tires buzzed over pavement. The handlebars trembled slightly under her grip. Her cheek still pulsed, not sharply, not anymore. Just a steady, warm echo of what had happened. But it wasn't the sting that stayed with her. It was the way no one looked surprised, as if it was normal, as if her name didn't mean anything the moment it left her mouth. The houses blurred by, neat fences, tidy lawns, garden gnomes with peeling paint. She passed them all without seeing them. What replayed in her head wasn't the slap. It was the laughter before it. The voices, casual and sure, laughing at something they didn't understand. She tightened her grip. The bike wobbled slightly. She steadied it, exhaled, and focused on the last stretch of gravel road that led to the house. The gate squeaked just a little when she opened it. The grass was a bit too long. The porch steps had a soft sag in the middle, but the flowers along the edge were precise, carefully arranged. Someone had been here. Someone always was. She let the bike fall gently against the fence and stepped onto porch. He was there. Of course he was. Arnold stood near the far corner, one hand on a hose, watering the flower beds like he'd done every summer since she could remember. His posture was relaxed, but even that seemed intentional. Nothing about him ever slouched, even in stillness. His white shirt was half-tucked. The sleeves rolled once at the elbows. His eyes were on the soil, not the sky. He moved the hose slowly, patiently, as if he were trying to teach the root something. "You're home early," he said without turning. She didn't answer, just stood there, backpack slipping off one shoulder, fingers curled tightly around the strap. The silence stretched, but he didn't feel it. Then he turned and he saw. The moment was quiet, no gasp, no shout, just the way his gaze landed on the red bloom across her cheek and held. The hose dipped, the water kept running, but his hand didn't move. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't say, "Are you okay?" He turned and walked into the house. She followed without a word. Inside, the air was cool, dim. The shutters were half closed to keep out the afternoon glare. The kitchen smelled faintly of old wood and citrus. Arnold opened a cabinet, pulled down 2 glasses, filled them with water, and placed one in front of her without looking up. Then he reached into a drawer, slow and deliberate, and pulled out a photograph. He didn't slide it across right away. He looked at it for a long moment. His fingers brushed the edge. Then carefully he set it in front of her. It was old, faded, curled at the corners. A photo of them both, Mara, 6 years old, in a slightly too big GI, grinning with her hair tied back in a crooked ponytail. Standing beside her, hand on her shoulder, was Arnold, younger, bearded, wearing the same quiet expression he always wore. Behind them, a tournament banner, barely legible now. She stared at it, swallowed once. "They laughed," she whispered. He didn't respond. "Then he hit me?" Arnold didn't flinch. His eyes were steady, unmoved, but not cold. He leaned back slightly, arms crossed, as if bracing the weight of something heavier than words. "Different times," he said quietly. "They always threaten first." Mara's hands tightened around the glass. "I said your name, and they laughed like I'd made you up." He nodded once. Most people don't believe what they can't see. She looked down at the photo again. "I didn't lie." "I know." They sat in silence. The fridge hummed. Outside, the hose still ran gently over the grass, forgotten. Arnold stood, walked to the far cabinet, opened a bottom drawer, and pulled something out. A folded piece of cloth. Dark. Worn. He unfolded it once, just enough to reveal the edge of black fabric, faded from age and use. A belt. No stripes. No labels. Just wait. He set it beside the photo. Not dramatically. Not with explanation. Just there. You're not here to prove anything, he said. She looked at him, unsure what to say. But you should know how to stand, he continued, even when the floor disappears. She stared at the belt, then at the photo, then back at him. Arnold didn't move. We start again, he said. She nodded. He poured more water. Nothing else needed to be said. That night, she didn't sleep much. Not because of the pain. Her cheek had already cooled, but the weight inside her hadn't moved. It sat beneath her ribs like a stone, waiting. Down the hallway, Arnold's room was quiet. Lights off, door slightly open. She lay in bed, the photo now on her nightstand, the corners pressed flat under a book. The house didn't creak. The walls didn't groan. But she could still feel him there, waiting, not with pressure, not with expectation, just presence. And somehow, that was heavier than any slap. The sun rose slow the next morning, stretching light across the wooden floorboards like it wasn't in a hurry to start anything. Mara hadn't moved for hours. Her pillow was still slightly damp where her cheek had rested, but not from tears, from the kind of restless sweating that comes when sleep tries to stay and the mind won't let it. The room was quiet, except for the ceiling fan clicking softly above her, a sound that had always felt like summer. This time it felt like waiting. She sat up finally, legs heavy, shoulders stiff. Her GI was folded near the door, clean but creased, untouched since the week before. She didn't touch it. Instead, she walked barefoot down the hallway, toward the smell of dew and soil and something faintly metallic. The screen door creaked slightly as she pushed it open. Arnold was already outside. He moved slowly across the back garden, rake in hand, pulling the gravel path into order like a man who knew exactly how much pressure each stone needed. His boots left perfect imprints in the damp ground. Every step measured, every motion balanced. He didn't look over when she stepped outside. Just said, "You slept late." She rubbed her arms. The breeze was cool, even with the sun rising. About yesterday, she started. He didn't turn. Instead, he set the rake down, nodding once toward the side yard. "You hungry?" She hesitated. "A little. Then you can train before breakfast." She followed him past the garden, down a narrow strip of grass that curved behind the house. Tucked between the hedges and the old tool shed was a square of worn earth. The grass here was trimmed close, almost flat, the dirt beneath showing through in places where shoes had pressed too long, too hard. In one corner, a wooden post leaned slightly to one side. It had no markings, no rope, no padding. But the way it stood, weathered, scarred, quietly solid, told her everything. Arnold stepped to the center and rolled one shoulder back. Slow. The movement cracked slightly, but he didn't react. He stretched the other arm behind him, then looked at her. "You remember the three?" he asked. She nodded faintly. The breathing form, the side step. He raised an eyebrow. She smiled just a little. The pivot for balance. He gave a short grunt. Approval, not praise. "Still in you." "I never forgot them," she said. "I just didn't know if they mattered in a place like that." He didn't respond right away. His eyes didn't change. But something behind them sharpened, like a lens coming into focus. "They matter more in a place like that," he said. "Especially there." She stepped onto the mat, or what used to be a mat. It wasn't soft. It wasn't clean. But it was familiar. Her bare feet adjusted quickly. She breathed in, slow. The air smelled like grass and dust and old wood. She closed her eyes. "Show me the first one," he said, slowly. She moved, not with performance, not with urgency, but with memory. Each breath pulled into place. Each shift of weight found its mark. Her arms didn't flail. Her core didn't wobble. When she finished the last strike, she opened her eyes. Arnold didn't nod, didn't smile. Again. The second time, She moved faster. Not rushed, clear. Her strikes landed with control, her body aligning with every intention. When she finished, her fist stayed still for a beat longer. He stepped forward. That's enough. Her heart was racing, not from exhaustion, from something else, something deeper and quieter, like breathing after holding your breath too long and not realizing you needed to. Arnold didn't say anything for a moment. Then he reached behind his back and pulled something out from his jacket pocket. A black belt, faded, folded once, worn at the edges. He didn't hand it to her. He just walked over the wooden post and draped it across the top. She stared at it, then at him. "I'm not ready to wear that," she said. "You're not supposed to be," he replied. She waited, expecting more, but there was nothing else, just a stillness between them, as solid as the belt itself. He looked at her one last time before turning back toward the house. "Honor isn't what you carry," he said. "It's what you stand on when everything else breaks." Her throat caught, just for a second. She didn't know if she believed it yet, but she nodded. He walked away. She stayed on the grass, watching the belt, the post, the sunlight creeping over the fence. The wind rustled through the hedges. A bird chirped once and stopped. She didn't touch the belt. Not yet. But for the first time since the dojo, she didn't feel like she had to prove anything. Not even to herself. The next day, Arnold didn't water the flowers. He didn't trim the hedges. He didn't rake the gravel. He shaved, put on a plain blue button-down shirt tucked into faded jeans, laced up heavy boots. Nothing flashy, just neat, precise, familiar in a way that didn't call attention to itself. At a glance, he looked like a man ready to fix a generator or change a fuse. But something about the way he moved, shoulders square, eyes quiet, said he wasn't there to fix anything. He was there to see. At the community dojo, no one paid him much notice. A few parents glanced over, assuming he was part of the maintenance staff. One instructor waved lazily, pointing toward the back exit. "Janitor's closet is around the corner." Arnold didn't correct him. He nodded once and kept walking. Down the corridor, past the vending machines, past the trophy case coated in a thin film of dust. A hallway most people never used led to the utility room. He entered, closed the door softly behind him, and waited. The vent above him buzzed. Through the thin walls, voices leaked from the office nearby. At first, they were muffled. Just laughter, the scrape of a chair, the slap of a hand against a table. Then words. She actually said his name like it meant something. Brolin's voice carried through the air, loud and casual, no hint of restraint. "Arnold, can you believe it?" Someone else chuckled. Maybe she thought he'd show up, riding on a motorcycle. "Please," Brolin scoffed. "That guy's been a meme since I was in high school. These kids think discipline comes from movie stars." More laughter. Arnold stood still. The room smelled of bleach and old mops. His hands were clasped behind his back. Not clenched, just steady. Outside, a printer whirred. Pages shuffled. More voices. Different ones this time. "I've got another certificate here. That's number 6 this month. Same price." "No, bumped it. Kids' parents want him to skip to black belt. They're offering a bonus." Arnold didn't blink. Selling fake ranks. Selling lies. And laughing at a girl for believing in something real. He stepped back out into the hallway, without a sound. Over the next few days, Arnold stayed close. Not obvious, just present. He pushed a cart down the hallway with a slow rhythm. Swept the locker rooms. Carried a wrench he never used. No one questioned him. Most didn't even notice. But he watched, listened, every whisper in the break room, every joke passed in front of students, every name on the list. Mara didn't know. She thought he stayed home. She thought maybe he was giving her space to figure things out herself. He wasn't. He was collecting truth. On the 3rd day, he watched Brolin pull a young student aside, a nervous boy with wide eyes and a white belt. The instructor crouched beside him, voice low and sugar-coated. "If you practice hard, your parents can help you move ahead faster. I've got ways, special ways. Not everyone needs to follow the same path." The boy nodded, unsure. Arnold said nothing. Later that afternoon, he walked into the admin office without knocking. The secretary glanced up. He handed her a sealed envelope. No return address. Inside were copies of the forged certificates, names, dates, voice transcripts, even a short video clip, recorded quietly through the vent. She opened the envelope, frowned, then looked up to ask a question. But Arnold was already gone. That night, he returned home late. Mara was on the porch, still in her GI, kicking at the side of an old tire they kept for drills. She turned when she saw him. "Where were you?" she asked. Arnold didn't lie, but he didn't explain. "Watching," he said. "For what?" "For the right time." She wanted to ask more, but something in his tone stopped her. It wasn't evasive, just final. Inside, he placed another envelope on the kitchen counter, this one unsealed. It held a printed schedule. The next day's board meeting. A note clipped to the top. Brolin would be demonstrating for visiting evaluators. A formality. A chance to show off the program. Mara saw it. She understood. "You're coming?" she asked. He nodded once. "Not to watch," he said. The words didn't carry weight because of their volume. They carried weight because of how quietly they settled into the room. That night, Mara didn't sleep much again. But it was a different kind of restlessness. Not fear. Not shame. Something more like anticipation. Like the breath you hold before a strike. The dojo would look the same in the morning. Same mats. Same banners. Same voices calling instructions. But she knew it wouldn't be the same. Because this time, he wouldn't be standing in the corner pretending not to exist. This time they would see him. And this time they wouldn't laugh. The morning air felt thinner than usual. The dojo was already buzzing when Mara arrived. Students stretching on the mats, instructors adjusting clipboards, a few parents leaning against a glass wall with coffee cups in hand. The district board was scheduled to arrive by 10. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew it was a performance day. The kind where everything had to look cleaner, sharper, louder than usual. Even Brolin wore a crisper uniform than normal, the pleats ironed into stiff lines across his back. Mara stepped in through the side door, quiet as always. She bowed to the mat, then walked to her usual spot along the back wall. No one spoke to her, but a few glanced. One boy gave a quick nod. She returned it. Her eyes scanned the room. He wasn't here yet. The front door opened a few minutes later. He didn't make a sound when he walked in. No announcement. No dramatic pose. Just Arnold, in plain jeans, a tucked-in gray shirt, and his old leather boots. His steps were slow, purposeful, but not heavy. He paused just inside the threshold, eyes scanning the gym like someone returning to a place they already knew too well. A few students noticed first, then the assistant instructors. Whispers rippled like wind through tall grass. "Wait, is that?" "No way. Looks like him." Brolin turned from the center of the mat, tightening his belt with a swift tug. His expression twitched when he saw Arnold. Just for a second. "We're starting," he barked, louder than needed. "Line up." Arnold didn't move to the bleachers. He stood still, hands resting calmly at his sides. Mara stepped forward. "He's not here to watch," she said. Brolin's jaw tensed. "Then what is this? More fairy tales? More theater?" She didn't flinch. "You asked who my grandfather was. I told the truth. And yesterday you hit me for it." The room stilled. A few glances darted toward Brolin. He folded his arms, his voice tight. This dojo is built on discipline, not legacy claims, not make-believe. Arnold stepped forward, his voice low, steady. "You hit her for saying who her family is." Brolin's eyes narrowed. "I disciplined her for lying." "She didn't lie," Arnold said. Brolin stepped closer, a smirk tugging at his mouth. "How would you know?" Arnold met his eyes. "Because I'm the lie you're talking about." A pause fell over the room, sharp and wide. Someone at the back laughed once, nervously. "Yeah, okay. What is this? A movie promo?" Another voice. "Looks like a retired stunt double." Brolin raised his arms like he was shrugging off the whole thing. So if you're really him, he said, stepping toward Arnold, what now? You want me to apologize? Kneel? Maybe give a speech about honor and the American dream? Arnold didn't respond. He looked at the floor, then at Mara, then back at Brolin. You teach them how to hit hard, he said, but you forgot to teach them what to stand for. Brolin chuckled. You want to prove something? Fine. He pointed to the center of the mat. Let's go. Arnold didn't move immediately. He took off his jacket, folded it neatly, and set on a bench. Underneath, just a plain shirt stretched over a frame that moved slow, but held weight. Not young weight, not flashy, but forged. He stepped onto the mat. Brolin bowed. Arnold didn't. I don't fight to win, Arnold said quietly. I fight to remind. Brolin struck first. A straight jab, a spinning hook, a roundhouse to the ribs. Arnold blocked the first, dodged the second, stepped back from the third. Gasps rose. Whispers scattered. He's too slow. He's losing. For a moment, it looked true. Then Arnold shifted. His stance dropped low. His breath calmed. The next block wasn't reactive. It was set. Brolin's strike landed on nothing. Arnold stepped to the side, redirected, and struck with precision. A single palm to the ribs. A low sweep to the back leg. Brolin stumbled. The crowd murmured. Arnold didn't press. He waited. Brolin came again, faster, harder, now sweating. Punches wild. Kicks rushed. The form slipped. The rhythm broke. Arnold sidestepped the last strike, grabbed the GI, and drove his elbow into the center of Brolin's chest. Controlled. Sharp. Final. Brolin hit the mat hard. No one clapped. No one spoke. Arnold looked down at him, then turned to Mara. This wasn't for me, he said. It was for her. The words hung in the air. He walked off the mat, picked up his jacket, and didn't say another word. Behind him, the room remained frozen. Even the students who had laughed were now silent. Even Brolin, still on the floor, didn't move. In that moment, no one cared who he was. They just knew what they saw. And that was enough. It didn't explode right away. The video surfaced slowly, first as a 12-second clip with no caption. No context. Just Brolin crashing to the mat, and Arnold standing over him, quiet and still. Someone had filmed it from the side, their phone shaking slightly. You could hear the air change when Brolin hit the floor. That sound carried more than any punch. It landed on martial arts forums first. A few reposts, a couple of stunned reactions. Then someone added subtitles. I don't fight to win. I fight to remind. That version passed to TikTok. A black belt in Brazil called it a masterclass in control. A veteran posted it with the caption, "Strength doesn't shout." By the time Mara saw it, it had been viewed nearly 4 million times. She was brushing her teeth when the notification buzzed. She didn't click it at first, just stared at the preview. Her grandfather's face. Her face, in the background, barely visible. When she finally played it, her breath caught, not at the takedown, but at the moment right before, when Arnold turned to her and said this was for her. It played twice. Then again. She didn't share it. She didn't post. She just set the phone down, face down, on the bathroom sink, and stood there for a long time. That night, another version went up. A full cut. It opened with her voice, soft, cracked, but steady. I didn't lie. Then the sound of the slap. Then the silence. Then the door opening. Arnold stepping forward. Someone had edited the footage together with care. No flashy transitions. Just sequence. Just truth. And this time, people paid attention. Comments poured in. Stories from kids who had been silenced in gyms and schools. Parents who had believed instructors until they saw the bruises. Teachers who said they cried watching it. Fighters who had trained for years and said they'd never seen anything so restrained, so powerful. Hashtags started rolling in. /hashtag respect is not fear /hashtag justice for Mara /hashtag. The quiet strength /hashtag. He could see by morning. The school's inbox was flooded. The district superintendent had already made a call. A board meeting was scheduled for noon. Brolin didn't speak to anyone that morning. He arrived at the office with his arms crossed, chin lifted, eyes hard, but his nameplate was already missing from the door. In the hallway, students whispered. No one laughed. No one joked. Even the older boys who used to lead warm-ups stood a little straighter, eyes darting whenever someone passed by. In the office, Brolin stood across from the coordinator and the principal. They played the video. No commentary, just the footage, just a moment, the slap, the fall, the stillness. When it ended, the principal spoke first. Do you think what happened was acceptable? Brolin didn't answer right away. He watched the screen like he was waiting for a different outcome, a version where he looked stronger. I was trying to enforce discipline, he said finally, and that includes striking a student? The question was calm, not rhetorical. He opened his mouth, closed it. There was no way out, not with that video on 3 continents, dubbed in 5 languages, broken down frame by instructors who'd never even heard of their school before this week. You're not under criminal investigation, the coordinator said, but the trust you broke can't be repaired with a statement. Brolin didn't speak again. The resignation was signed an hour later. Back in the dojo, the class sat quietly on the mats. A substitute instructor stood near the front, unsure whether to lead or listen. The silence felt strange, not heavy, just wide, like everyone was waiting for something unspoken to settle. Then one of the older students stood, a girl with a purple belt. She looked around, then at the substitute. Can we say something? She asked. The coach nodded and stepped aside. The girl faced the class. Yesterday wasn't about karate, she said. Not really. A few heads turned. We thought we were learning how to win matches, but we weren't learning how to listen or how to stand up for each other. Another student stood, a boy this time. He told me to fight harder when I was crying. More voices followed. Quiet, honest. One by one, students stood up and shared what they hadn't dared to say before. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't protest. It was something quieter, more real. Someone walked up to the whiteboard and wrote 5 words. Respect is not fear. It's earned. No one erased it. When Mara stepped to the front, she didn't speak. She didn't need to. She just raised her arms, signaled to start drills, and led the breathing warm-up. The class followed, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. That was all. No ceremony, no medals, just stillness, and then movement, aligned, steady. By the end of the session, no one had said her grandfather's name. They didn't have to. A week later, the dojo was quiet. Not empty, just quieter. The voices weren't gone, but they moved differently now. Softer, more careful, as if the walls themselves had learned how to listen. Outside the town, past the edge of the neighborhood where the grass forgot to grow in straight lines, a small community center sat behind a chain-link fence. No banners, no sponsors, just a square patch of grass under an old oak tree. That's where the new class met. No belts, no trophies, no tests, just kids in t-shirts and bare feet, standing in uneven lines, waiting. Mara stood in front of them. Her GI wasn't pristine. It had creases, soft from wear. Her sleeves were rolled once at the elbow. Her stance was relaxed, but there was weight in it, like the ground trusted her. She didn't say much when the class started, just bowed, then walked them through the first breathing form. Slow, steady. Some of the kids stumbled. A few forgot their left from right, but no one laughed. They just watched her, watched the way she moved with care, like she wasn't showing off, just remembering. At the edge of the field, beneath the shade of the tree, Arnold leaned against a bench, arms crossed, hat tilted low. He didn't speak, didn't give notes, just stood there, watching, like a line of stone, quietly marking the edge of something important. Most of the kids didn't know who he was, just an older man in boots too big for summer. But every time Mara demonstrated a technique, her eyes flicked toward him, not for permission, just to check if he was still there. He always was. Midway through class, one boy, 9, maybe 10, lost his balance during a side kick and hit the ground with a loud thud. He winced, looked around, bracing for the embarrassment. But Mara walked over without a word, held out her hand, helped him up, then stood beside him, repeated the move once, slowly, no correction, just example. Better, she said. He nodded. The class went on. A woman from the local board showed up near the end. She didn't interrupt, just stood near Arnold and watched. After a few minutes, she leaned in, spoke quietly. You ever think about starting a mentorship program? She asked. Arnold didn't look at her, just watched the class. We'll see, he said. That was enough. When the session ended, the kids bowed and scattered. Some ran to parents waiting in parked cars. A few lingered, rolling in the grass, laughing the kind of laughter that hadn't been possible in the old dojo. One boy stayed behind, the same one who had fallen earlier. He approached Mara, head down, something folded in his hand, a piece of notebook paper. I wrote a thank you note, he mumbled. She blinked. For what? He shrugged. For being like that. She took the note, didn't open it, just nodded. He ran off. She stood there for a moment, paper still in her hand, unsure what to do with it. Then she folded it once more and slipped it into her pocket. Later that evening, the house was quiet again. The kind of quiet that didn't feel empty, just settled. Mara walked down the hallway, something in her hand. She stopped near the living room where Arnold was sorting through a box of old gear, pads, wraps, a worn-out headguard that hadn't been used in years. Hey, she said. He looked up. She held out the belt. Black, faded, folded carefully. I think I'm ready now. He stepped forward, looked at the belt, then at her. No, he said. She froze, surprised. Why not? He smiled, just the edge of one. Because you already were. She didn't respond, just stood there, belt still in hand, unsure what to do with it. He didn't take it from her, just turned and walked toward the back door into the twilight. She stood in the hallway for a few seconds longer, then walked to her room. She opened the closet, pulled out a small wooden shadow box she had used for pins and tournament badges, emptied it, laid the belt inside. Beside it, she placed an old photo, one of her and Arnold at a tournament years ago, both in uniforms too big, both smiling like they had something to prove. She closed the glass, set it on the windowsill where the morning light would touch it. The note the boy had given her was still in her pocket. She unfolded it now. 3 words, written in shaky, uneven handwriting. I believe you. She smiled. Not big, just enough to feel something shift. Outside, the sound of the garden hose returned, spraying slow arcs across the flowers. Inside, Mara sat down beside the window and watched the belt as it caught the last bit of sun. Not to wear it, not to show it, just to remember what it meant. And finally, she did.